Okay, y'all, it is the final episode of Dr. Russell's Great Gatsby Book Club. I'm calling this episode These People Are Trifling. Let's talk about why, shall we? Also, I have my tea. Although not a lot of tea to pour here, no real mysteries in the last two chapters. This is just everything starts to break down. Okay, so chapter 8, we start off with a little backstory, right? So we learn that Gatsby did go to the war, and he did go to Oxford, and Daisy was waiting for him at first, but then, she got a little impatient and couldn't do it. So then Tom comes along, and she just writes Gatsby at Oxford to break up with him, which is so sad. And then Gatsby comes back from abroad and he goes to St. Louis and tries to retrace their steps after Tom and Daisy got married, trying to find this woman, and that becomes his obsession for the rest of his life, essentially. So in the fallout from the accident, so remember Daisy and Gatsby done hit Myrtle Wilson, who was Tom's boo thing on the side, and George's wife. She died. Now they're trying to figure out who killed her in this yellow car, which belongs to Gatsby. So everybody is just broken and distraught, right? Daisy done hit somebody with a car. Gatsby has also participated in hitting this woman with a car, but also knows that people are after him, and his dream got crushed. All in that because Daisy done ran back to be in the arms of Tom. Tom distraught because he done lost his side piece. George has lost his wife. The Gatsby parties are over. The whole thing is just a mess. So Nick is taking care of Gatsby because without his dream of being with Daisy, he doesn't know, he's lost, right? He doesn't know who he is. I mean, he built this whole life, this mansion, these parties, everything, just so that he could be in the same zip code as Daisy. And now he doesn't have that, so he doesn't know who he is or what's happening. Gatsby's a mess. So then Michaelis, who is the Greek man who works over at the garage with George, she's trying to take care of George. George is losing his whole ever-loving mind. George is most certain that whoever Myrtle's lover is killed her on purpose. And he doesn't know that her lover is Tom, who is his friend. So let's start there. Trifling. And all this time, Tom could have said something like, actually, I was the one that was sleeping with your wife. But he's more focused on throwing Gatsby under the bus. What a terrible... Everybody in this story is just terrible. But also, poor George. This man ain't never done nothing, nobody. He's working. He one of the people in the story who not cheating on somebody. Just a hard-working man at a garage trying to provide for his wife. No, granted, he's a little abusive because nobody in the story is perfect. But still. And he done lost her in this terrible way. Her blood is in his garage. The man can't even go to work to pay his bills or whatever. And so George decides, I'm going to go find this person. And I don't care who, what anybody says about it. I'm convinced that this is what happened. It wasn't an accident, even though it really was an accident. So he goes on foot and decides that he's about to go figure out who done did this to his wife and who she was sleeping with and who killed her. So off he goes. He finds himself, we learn later, at Tom's house, basically threatens Tom with a gun, who owns this yellow car? Tom snitching on Gatsby, terrible person. Oh, it's Gatsby's car. And now granted, yes, Gatsby's car is the car who hit Myrtle. But again, at any point here, he could have been that was an accident. I'm the one who was actually sleeping with your wife. Please don't kill anybody. But nope, he just gives up Gatsby because, again, terrible human being. So then George goes over to Gatsby's in broad daylight while Gatsby's trying to be out enjoying the pool. He shoots Gatsby, kills him in the pool, and then kills himself. So now Nick, because he's Gatsby's only friend, Jesus, he's got to go and get his friend's body out the pool with the servants at the house who know him but don't really know him like that. And that's kind of how we look at we learn that, like, even though Gatsby had this, at first we feel like he has this amazing life and all of these people are always around him, but like he doesn't have anyone. Like, there's no one there to like be there for him. And it's so sad, right, when somebody dies and, you know, has a funeral and nobody comes. So so that's how we're left on chapter 8 with this two dead bodies at Gatsby's house. Then opening in chapter 9, we realize that Myrtle's sister is a real one. So she basically tells the police, like, assures them, like, no, Myrtle would never step out with her husband. She was perfectly happy at home. So they just decide, okay, George is obviously just a madman, and the police are happy to leave it at that because both of them are dead. So what are they going to do? So then Nick takes it upon himself to plan the funeral, which it is immediately it's not going well. So he calls Tom and Daisy. They're out of town suddenly. Don't nobody know where they done went. Then he tries to find Wolfsheim, who at first is like, I'm busy. And then he literally goes to see Wolfsheim. And Wolfsheim, if you remember, Wolfsheim, by the way, is Gatsby's sketchy friend that lives in the city. The guy who cheated on the World Series. And then he's busy, but then he's like, well, I don't want to get mixed up in that when people get killed. Like, your job is to be a good friend to somebody when they're alive. When somebody gets killed, like, I don't want nothing to do with that. Then he tries to call some of Gatsby's other sketchy friends because he's staying at his house and they're all busy, so to speak. But one of them is like, I can't make it to the funeral, but if you could get my shoes for me and send them to me, that'd be awesome. What on earth? And then eventually Mr. Gatz, who is Gatsby's father, finally his dad kind of comes to visit. And the interesting thing about his dad, I think, is the fact that he also has this like image of Gatsby in his mind that's not real and not rooted in reality, which I think is, I don't know, it made me sad. Like, nobody really knows Gatsby. We don't even know Gatsby yet. We done read a whole book called The Great Gatsby, and we don't really know Gatsby like that either as a reader. But yeah, the dad has this story of him being so hardworking, and he's so proud of him for having this house. Like, he doesn't know that he was involved in some shady dealings to get rich, bootlegging and gambling and stuff like that. So it's one of those weird things where, like, everybody kind of believes what they want to believe about Gatsby, but Nick is the only person who seems interested in actually finding out the truth about him. So nobody comes to the funeral. So here is this this is the saddest funeral on the planet. So it's Mr. Gatz, his daddy, Nick, his friend. The servants are there, the servants that are left, because remember he fired everybody. The mailman, and then the owl-eyed man, who we don't even know his name. Nick just calls him the owl-eyed man, who used to come to all of Gatsby's parties. And that's it. So in trying to do all of this, Nick kind of has this new realization about his life where he's just like, I don't really belong here. And like, these people aren't good people. He calls Tom and Daisy careless, right? Because the fact that Tom and Daisy are rich, so neither of them ever have to feel any consequences for cheating on each other and facilitating the death of this poor woman and sleeping with this man's wife. Like, no, they don't have to. They can just pack up their bags and leave. Like, that's what rich people get to do, right? They can just pack up their bags and leave and don't have to deal with any of it. So basically Nick is like, I don't belong here on the East Coast. This old money East Coast nonsense, I can't deal with it. So he makes plans to leave. He tries to do the right thing by going to work things out with Jordan, and she basically tells him to kick rocks so she can do bad all by herself. So there's that. He goes to talk. He runs into Tom. He doesn't want to talk to Tom because he don't like him like that no more. And that's how he finds out that Tom is the one who snitched. So now he's really, really ready to go. And he kind of concludes that Gatsby really believed in dreams, and in futures, right, that aren't connected to the past. So the old money idea is that generations past is who defines you. And Gatsby was sort of the one person who was living beyond that. So for F. Scott Fitzgerald, the 1920s kind of represent this moment where that world is over. And people should be able to make themselves in the image of however they want to, which is exactly what Gatsby did. So he's kind of supposed to be this inspiration as somebody who did all of this stuff for love and didn't have to rely on who his parents were or how much money he had or didn't have. And he really believes in a world beyond that. And Fitzgerald is saying, like, that's the world that's coming in the 1920s. And that's his sort of message, that the world needs to change and that it shouldn't matter how much money you have or where you went to school or who your parents are or how big your trust fund is, that people should be able to make images of themselves. And now we know that as the sort of like American dream narrative. Right now it's a different conversation about how true or realistic that is, and obviously we are in the middle of a moment in the world where it's very clear that that dream gets crushed, right? For people who look a certain way or who come from a certain country. So I think over time we've realized that that's not quite, we have a little bit less hope for everybody in that story of just being who you are and kind of making your own way in the world. But in the 1920s, it was new. And people were really excited about that possibility and about change and about the world being different after a global war and a pandemic. So maybe we'll have a different world to look forward to and be able to have the kind of hope that Fitzgerald and Gatsby have once some of this stuff dies down a little bit. So yeah, I guess I say that to say that Fitzgerald might have a little, if he's right, then we have something very exciting to look forward to in celebrating the coming in of a new world, if you believe in hope. So that is the end of Great Gatsby. Rest in peace, Gatsby. I hope you enjoyed the book. Have fun with your final projects. This is Dr. Russell signing off for the last time.